what is it that I most enjoy? It is simply the company of young people, and hopefully getting it right with them. So there you go. Thank you, Alo.
Amazing. I really like that. And I think it's about having options as well, because it's important that parents who want that type of education have the option. So we're not being forced to just have a co-ed style education, but have the option for girls to be in an environment of an all girls education.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Lloyd. So, Barrister Annie, you've been on this journey of trying to find a school, the school that is right for
Right
your
for the
daughter.
child.
Exactly, right for the child. Tell us, what has been the most rewarding part of this journey, and what has been the most challenging part of this journey?
For us, we started the journey with you, as you remember, back when she was in year four. Um, I can't stress enough the, how important it is to start early, because obviously your choices will change, and it's better they change earlier, and as the child grows and develops, their interests change as well, where they would fit in changes, things like that. So what I've found the most rewarding really is just seeing, we've been to a lot of schools, a lot of open days, a lot of private tours, a lot of, it's just seeing how she interacts in those environments, just seeing the school through her eyes. Because I found that the schools that we went, I and her dad went alone without her. We viewed it differently. We viewed it from, where is it on the league table? What is it doing, for the children? Do they have the pools? We just wanted to make sure that, the glossy brochures delivered what they said on the tin. But when we took her along, she was looking at the other girls, she was looking at the sports facilities, she was looking at the pastoral care, she was looking at the boarding houses, she was looking at the seniors in the boarding houses. So she was looking with the eyes of, I might live here one day. While we were looking at, we're paying for this, what are we paying for? So those are two different perspectives that we, having her come along on those visits put into, our considerations when it came to making choices. In terms of what we found rewarding, we also found challenging, because we were then exposed to this breadth of options, the choices, having to make a decision, co-ed or single sex. I obviously went to QC, so I'm a placard carrying member of a single sex education. You can't convince me otherwise. But and boarding as well, so it just came down to so many, we were almost like overwhelmed with choice. So that in itself we then found challenging. So it was a bit of a two sides of the same coin. But ultimately, what we discovered was that, like your statement, it has to be right for the child. So going along that journey, the considerations that we had, because she's a very creative child, she's academic, but she's very drama and musical theater focused. So those became almost not top of our list, but more towards the top of our list, rather than where they're on the league table. What are they delivering in terms of GCSEs and things like that? And in the end, what we realized by going to all the schools is that it does come down to value added, because you could take a child and put them in Harrow, and if you put in a C child in Harrow and they come out a C child, yes, they might have made the network in Harrow, but there's no value added to them as individuals. But if you take a C child and put them, in any other school, and they come out an A+ child, that is what you want for that child. And as I've always said this to Esperanza, as my daughter, her dad, I don't want my child to come out a robotic machine. I want her to come back out to us as a human being, with the necessary values, with the necessary ethos, with the necessary, spirit of humanity in her, not just a functioning machine, for what it's worth. You know, there's just two sides to that coin. You do need to have some level of oomph in you to survive in today's world. So that's the balance that we've tried to find with the schools. Ultimately, in the end, we went to a lot of senior schools, we went to a lot of prep schools. What we've decided in the end is to go to a prep school for her at this point. So she's moving on from a year 6 into a year 7 in a prep school, purely because it's all about knowing your child as well. So we found that while she would thrive wherever she goes, really, because she's outgoing, she's vivacious, she'll make friends, she'll settle in, we just feel that she might still need a little bit more of a cocoon, which is what the prep model offers in most instances. So we've sort of now deviated and going to the prep education for the next 2 years, and then get her ready for senior school. So in a sense, what we've found rewarding, apart from the being overwhelmed by the breadth of options and choices, is actually learning our child as well, learning to listen to her as well, learning to let her have an opinion, or like, because then you know how it is in Nigeria, in the African sector, it is you become a doctor or a lawyer, you go where I want you to go, and that's the end of the story. I'm paying for it. We're not having that discussion. But it's just obviously opening up to her having an input into where she would be spending the next 6-7 years of her life, that we found has also been helpful for her as well, in terms of growing her confidence. And when we see her in this environment, we see the difference it makes to her. So that's been a very rewarding part of the journey as well.
Wow, 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 wow. So many powerful things that you have shared there. I'm going to have a go at summarizing some of them. You started in year 4. So this is for year 7 entry. So let's just say, for all intents and purposes, a 2 years start to the journey. Do you know that there's some schools where parents actually register, some nursery schools, they register whilst they're still pregnant with the child? Starting early does make a difference. And something Wando said that I really liked is the fact that being able to start early give time to make the decisions, time to think through, time to rinse the vision, to revisit the why, to just know the options and look at it over and over again. That time was indeed precious. The second point you made that I really, really like, Barrister Annie, was seeing the school through her eyes and not through the eyes of the parents. So not being distracted by the league tables, which is an indication, but it's one of many things to look at. But the importance was, how is she seeing the school? Because she's the one who will possibly be in that particular, not possibly be in the school, right? So she wants to be sure this is an environment that she can thrive in. So seeing it through her eyes was really, really important. And then you also talked about the fact that she needs, you knowing your child, you know that she needs an environment to sort of safely transition into senior school, into like the board and education experience. I know her, I know she's such a go-getter, she's independent already, but board and education with so many people does can take some time to settle in, and I'm sure she will settle in very well. But you know her, and you know that she needs a more nurturing environment for that to happen. So you're looking, and there are many prep schools, you're looking at the ones that would play to her strengths even more. That is amazing. Dr. Lloyd, back to you now. And please, parents, we have quite a number of you on the call. Please use the Q&A box. We really want to hear from you, because towards the end, we're going to open it up for Q&A. So we really, really want to hear your questions, your contributions. So please, let's get busy with the Q&A box. So Dr. Lloyd, excuse me, you've been ahead at different schools. What would you say differentiates one school from another?
It's got to be the people. So I'm speaking to a lovely audience here. So and I'm sorry I haven't met you in person, but please ask me any questions at all. And I'm keeping an eye on the Q&A. You're going to be paying a lot of money. This is a huge investment if you're going to go down the independent school route. And I have to say, Alo, your explanation of the British educational system was perfect. Really, really excellent. And, having been an inspector and a head for so long, I couldn't have put it more succinctly. It was really good. So parents, you're going to be paying a lot of money. So you're going to expect, I hope, that the school will have very good facilities, that the school will have very good academic results. But I would say to you, it's not all about academic results. I think Nwando explained that beautifully. You want to know that your child is going to achieve their best. And perhaps even more importantly, I would suggest you need to know that your child is going to be their best. So it's about not only nurturing and developing all of their academic potential, but it's about looking after them as people. Young people who have a sense of spirituality, a sense of well-being, a need to embrace all that this global village is going to offer them in 20 years' time. So facilities are also important, but again, they're not the be-all and end-all. As an inspector, I have been to schools with superb facilities, but are perhaps too large to know every child individually, or are so proud of their facilities, which I understand to an extent, that they forget the importance of each individual child. So I think, to answer Ala's question, having put that into some context, it's the quality of relationship that exists between the teachers and the pupils, but also a respectful relationship between the head and the parents. So you have a triumvirate relationship. You've got the teaching staff, you have the parents, and at the center you have the pupils. I know that I do not put my head on the pillow at night if I think I could have done something to help one of my girls for whatever reason, or to support a parent in a difficult situation. So I think the defining difference between any school must come down to the people. That will be the governing body, it will be the head, it will be the teaching staff, it will be how they show respect to the parent body, but how they show love in the deepest sense to children. Education comes from a word educere, Latin for, it was the farming word to find water from the ground 2,000, 3,000 years ago to nourish the crops. So that's where the word education comes from. And I think that's such an important word for us as educators and principals to remember, because it's not always about ramming home facts, although facts are important. It's about nurturing the child. And the only way, parents, you are going to know if you are speaking to a head and their staff, if they have that sort of commitment, is to visit the school, or at least have a very trusted, wise, insightful friend who can do that, like Alo, and she can report back. But it comes down to the relationships that you will observe. That is the key difference. And of course, relationships depend on people.
Spot on, spot on. People matter. I read economics for my first degree, and I'm sure anyone who read economics, even within senior school, secondary school, knew that there were 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship or enterprise. And we would always say that labor was the most important factor of production. And what is labor? It is people. It really is people. It is people that make for the experience. And, to a large extent, an independent education is an experience. A boarding education is an experience. And it is people that deliver on that experience. And you said something really good about meeting with the people, meeting with the head. I think that is key, because the leadership of the school really drives the culture, or as my Ghanaian friends say, culture. The leadership drives the culture of the school. So you want to have an interaction, if possible, with the head of the school or someone within the senior leadership team, because usually heads have a packed diary. So when you can meet with the senior leadership team or have a feel for the ethos of the school, the DNA of the school, it's something I'm increasingly becoming aware of. Every school has their DNA. There's something that is so different about the school, and you start to have a feel for it when you interact with the senior leadership team. You have a feel for the passion, the ambition, the drive, the initiatives, the things that they have in store ahead, and what they're thinking about. It really, really gives you a good glimpse. So people. And Dr. Lloyd, right through to the admissions team, the security guard, everyone. It's an experience. And the people really matter. So over to you.
So that was just a beautiful summary. It is people. Facilities make a child's experience perhaps more enriched in terms of access to exercise or activities, league tables. League tables can guide a parent to know if the school is delivering a good job. But what I would say to parents is send a bright child to any school and they should come out with good results. Send a child who, for whatever reason, needs a bit of support, whether it's in an academic area or an emotional area, or they've experienced some difficulties at home. And you know, sometimes these are very sensitive matters that only the head may be aware of. So send such a child to a school that really nurtures, and they will come out with the results that will enable them to have a rewarding life. I cannot stress the importance of the word happiness. A number of years ago, one of the politicians in this country was using the word happiness in a slightly glib, shallow sense. So I would just like to say that for me, happiness in its most profound sense is the key ingredient to choosing the right school, because a child who is happy will engage with their academic lessons. They will achieve their best with nurturing teachers. Happiness outside of lessons is experiencing activities that they might never have considered before. Who knows? They may find a talent. I'm actually I'm coaching a girl in year 10, and she's a singer-songwriter. I'll tell you what, she makes Adele look second-rate. Sorry, Adele, but she's fantastic. She did not know that she had this in her. She's Cameroonian, and she has the most beautiful voice, and she just pours musicality. And it's wonderful to see talent like this being nurtured. So happiness outside of lessons is getting the girls involved, and boys, if they're in a boys' school, get them involved in the extracurricular, because that's where they learn resilience so that they can take on life's challenges. They learn teamwork and leadership, of course, but they also learn the soft skills of humor and kindness and compassion, forgiveness, motivation of their friends. And most importantly, happiness is about engaging with people with kindness, not judging, having a nice global universality of warmth and respect. Happiness is in the teachers is about being kind and approachable, being there to listen to the girls. So look for happiness. Look for a school where the music is raising the roof. We had our final awards assembly on Thursday, and we were singing Lord of the Dance. We came to the final verse. I'd already asked the whole school to sing with great vigor and praise. We came to the final verse, and before they started singing, I said, "Come on, raise the roof." And the sound was just fabulous. And so you want to look for a school that isn't ashamed to have fun, and isn't ashamed to sing with great praise, that isn't ashamed to get dirty on the sports field. You know, you want to see a school where there is a lot happening, because that is what is going to create a very happy environment for your child, whether they're a girl or a boy, whether you're looking at single sex or co-educational. Look for a school where they can thrive and where they will be prepared for life after school.
I am so thrilled that you brought up the issue of happiness. It is so important. I actually heard the former head of Brighton College. Brighton College is a top school. Say a similar thing, that you should look out for joy, for love, for happiness in a school. I think we underestimate how important that is. When I was wrapping up my PhD research on poverty and livelihoods, the whole idea of happiness was coming to the fore. And the Oxford Poverty and Human Initiative Institute was really looking into this. And one of the things they found was a paradox we had always known, where some of the poorest countries were the happiest countries, and where some of the richest countries weren't necessarily as happy. And it was just interesting to see the dynamics of that, because happiness is so important. At the end of the day, having your child, skipping on the corridor, singing in the shower, having a great time in school, that is what you really want to have. But Wanda, I'm going to switch it up a bit with this whole happiness issue, because as we know, the typical African parent is like, I'm spending so much money on this education. You see that happiness? Okay, it's important. But I want a school that if I say, oh, my son attended this school or my daughter attends this school, that's what, I want to have that feeling. Yes, I want my child to be happy, but it also needs to, deliver on the investment that is being invested. What would you say to that?
Um,
So it's a topic for another webinar, honestly, because that's a when we were going school visiting and school touring and all that, my daughter kept on saying the vibe, the vibe, the vibe. She kept on saying, I like the vibe is and now looking back, the vibe was the people that it's the people that give those vibes of it's not the buildings, it's not the pools, it's not the tennis courts, it was always the people. And she kept on saying the vibe, there's a particular school that she fell in love with, and she said the vibe was just right for her. And looking back now, it's a school that she would have been able to skip in the corridors. It's a school that she would have been able to freely not be rugged or rough, but just not have the perfection was not expected at all times. So it wasn't uptight, it wasn't you have to conform to a certain standard or look a certain way or sit a certain way or so she felt relaxed to be herself. And obviously if you're relaxed enough, then you perform at your optimal, because then you're not worried about other things that would you know drag your attention away from what you really should be focusing on. I'm a big advocate of it. It's just about finding the right balance. Well, we pay, parents pay for, you have to deliver. In the end, it's a business model, the private school, the independent school sector. So we pay and we expect the service to be delivered, which is ultimately a perfect education, a top-notch education. But then this is life, and life, it's not white or black in life. It's there's a lot of gray areas, and then you have to think of the children in that environment, and you have to think, like Dr. Lloyd said, how they would interact in the real world. It's not just you could have a math genius come out and be a back office person in the real world. So they still need those soft skills. They still need to understand empathy. They still need to understand how to negotiate things and how to lose not be a sore loser, things like that. They have to understand that school of hard knocks in life. They have to bounce back, the resilience. You can't there's no well I might be wrong, but there's no textbook, or even you could read all the self-help books in the world, but it's still the people that would deliver those sort of soft skills. And children learn, they're like sponges. They absorb what they see. So if the people in those environments are giving off the wrong vibes, as my daughter would say, then those are the vibes they would absorb. And if those vibes are not right, then it's a slippery slope that would have to be rectified or remedied in adulthood, through therapy. It could be anything, but like you said, Alo, in Nigeria, we don't, you just have to toughen up. Life's hard, life stuff. There are children dying, there's an earthquake, there's famine. You have a beautiful life. You're privileged, so you shouldn't have anything to complain about, but that's not usually the case. So I really believe that happiness in a school goes a long way. It can take like I said earlier, can take a C child to an A child very, very easily. Very easily.
I'm going to piggyback off Esperanza's word of vibe, 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 because you can't see the vibe as you. I mean, you can see evidence of the vibe, but you feel it. You feel it. So beyond the shiny facilities which we expect an independent school to deliver on, I mean, with all that investment, you actually want to feel the pulse of the school.
Mhm.
And you can feel that from the research, from watching YouTube videos, from being at a webinar like this, from actually visiting the school. You start to feel the unseen. And that is what I particularly look out for, and I advise our parents to look out for. Yes, please don't get us wrong. Those facilities, oh, they're uber important. They're so important. I've been to a boarding house before, and I just felt this boarding house looked so tired. It needed an upgrade. It needed freshness to it. It was just tired. The carpets were old, the furniture was old, and that just didn't do it for me. I didn't like it. So the facilities do matter, right? It does matter, the quality of the facilities. But what we're trying to bring to the fore as well here is the unseen aspects of the school. How happy and how well nurtured are these children? And when you can get it right on both levels, oh my goodness, you've nailed it. And back to the issue of prestige of a school, the popularity of a school, um, versus the school delivering on happiness. It's almost back to the argument of, do you want your child to be a big fish in a big pond or a big fish in a small pond? It's an argument, it's a debate, it's a conversation that we can have for a long time. But what I would say is, I read Malcolm Gladwell, I think it was either David and Goliath or Outliers, where he talked about a lady who was a high flyer in senior school, got into either Yale or MIT, one of the top US universities, and her performance curve just plummeted because all of a sudden she wasn't this high flyer anymore. And for her, that had an impact on her health, on her mental health, her confidence, and she didn't just do quite as well. So season stages, personality growth, maturity, so many things come into the mix, and you really have to carefully think through it all in making this decision. Do not be drawn or carried away by one indicator or one feature alone. And I always will say, there is no perfect school, right? No school will deliver it for you. No school will deliver for you 100%. It's just, don't even expect that. However, they can give you 80-20, and the 20 is something you can just sort of, you can live with. So for example, we had a parent who wanted an athletic field track because his son is very athletic, right? So he wanted that on the school's premises, but the school didn't have that. But they had other things, and they do take the children away to be able to have that field experience. That was his 20. The school delivered on 80. He was happy to go for that school. So we're going to be wrapping up now. Please use the Q&A box. I know that Dr. Lloyd is active on the Q&A box. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so I just basically highlighted a few things that I thought would be good to sort of wrap up our plenary conversation on. And, we talked about pain. As I said at the start, an independent education is not cheap, not because the schools are a business or because they want to overcharge you, but because for them to deliver on this independent education beyond, the average, beyond the ordinary, it costs money. It costs money. So I want us to now talk about fees, scholarships, and bursaries. We cannot have a conversation about finding the British boarding school that is right for your child and gloss over this very important aspect of the conversation. So Dr. Lloyd, what you had to say to, the whole dimension of scholarships and bursaries and school fees, and please tell us what Malvern St. James has to offer for our families who may want to consider MSJ for their daughters.
Of course. Thank you very much, Alo. And, it is so important to be very honest here. I'm very grateful to Alo for explaining that, an independent school education offers so much in terms of preparation for life. And of course, that does come as a price. And that is why my governors and I only 2 weeks ago had a meeting on how we can best support. And we were speaking very specifically about Nigerian families, because I was made aware by one of my families how challenging it is in terms of the currency of Niger versus the pound. So we have a very, very deep and extensive range of bursaries and scholarships. So our scholarships will be awarded in recognition of perhaps an academic ability or a talent, a skill. So it may be an academic scholarship, it may be a music or drama or art scholarship. And alongside a scholarship will go a bursary. So the bursary is in recognition of financial challenges. And this is why I was contacted by a particularly good family who are experiencing difficulties. And my governors are very supportive, and we can really work with families in order to recognize how difficult the financial situation is for Nigerian families at the moment, recognizing the quality of the girl, as it is in Malvern St. James's case, and her contribution to the school, and what we know she's going to go on to achieve as an old girl of the school. And that's really important. We never forget that our old girls can make a very significant to our current students. So with our new diploma in sixth form global competencies, we're linking every old girl with a sixth form girl in terms of career aspirations. But just to reassure parents, and perhaps I could just put in the chat my email address so that any query comes confidentially to me, and I will then deal with that so that I can be as supportive as possible. Typically, our scholarships will range between 10 and 40%. So the scholarships are in recognition of talent and ability. Equally, our bursaries can also range between 10 and 40%. So they will be means tested. And there's a very simple application form that again is confidential between me, you as a parent, and our director of finance. So in theory, a very talented girl who's coming from a financially challenging background could be looking for up to 80%. I also have discretion to extend that. What I'm looking for is a girl who's going to contribute to the language of Malvern St. James, who's going to give us that vibe and who's looking for the vibe that we offer. And I love the word vibe. I don't think it's necessarily very headmasterly, but in that sense, I'm not particularly conventional. What I care about is getting the right girl in who can just thrive here. So I will deal with the finances once I think, well, is this a girl who I can do business with? And, I think that's really important. But I want to reassure parents, all you need to do is contact me directly, and I will then deal with it on a one-to-one basis. So it can be up to 80%, but I've got further flexibility.
Wow, that's
Just to,
amazing.
sorry,
Okay.
Doctor, just to quickly add on to the back of what Dr. Lloyd has just said, what we've found on this journey is that you do not have to come from a family of millionaires or billionaires. You don't have to be trust fund babies. As long as you aspire, you have the aspiration, your child can deliver, your child can show that the school can do business with them, then it's worth a shot. That's, it's always, you have to dare to dream, both as parents and, show that to the children as well. So it's achievable.
I mean, you've both said it all, honestly. And I think I just want to seize this opportunity to appreciate every parent on the call, particularly our parents who are based in Nigeria, because the economic realities are really mind blowing. I'm told food inflation is over 40%. It's crazy, economically speaking. Yet we have parents on this call who are still against all odds considering an independent education for their children. I think it's highly laudable. I just it sometimes it moves me to tears actually, knowing the sacrifices that parents make. Literally, some parents have sacrificed holidays to make sure school fees were put in place. It warms my heart all the time. And to have a headmaster like yourself, Dr. Lloyd, who recognizes that is really highly appreciated. And like Barrister Annie was saying, it's about you daring to dream. It's about the child as well. You making sure the child is nurtured to be able to give back something. It's not just what about, like we always say, Abraham Lincoln said, it's not what America can do for you, but what you can do for America. What can your daughter bring to the school to contribute, like Dr. Lloyd said, to the language of the school, to the richness of the school. Some girls make schools popular. Some boys make a school popular because they've gone on to do amazing things. And I like the connection between your alumni and current students. I think the alumni office is there's so much that can be done within that space. It is a lot of work. So for Malvern St. James to really be investing the needed time to connect alumni, old girls, with current students, I think is absolutely phenomenal. For what it's worth, before we wrap up on fees, scholarship, and bursaries, I just want to quickly differentiate scholarships and bursaries, because sometimes when parents are asking for a scholarship, what they're asking for is really a bursary, right? Bursaries are means tested. They would look at your income. Scholarships are merit based, as it were. The child has to be able to bring something to the table at a very high level, be it in music, sports, art, drama, academic, or across the board. And also to add finally to this, There are state boarding schools. Some parents don't realize there are state boarding schools. There are only about 35, 36 of them in the UK. However, the child has to be a British citizen or British passport holder. And a good number of them will deliver on a quality boarding education. So there are options. There are options. Okay, so I'm going back to share my screen. And we've talked about single sex versus co-ed, so I'll let that be, except anyone who has a question on that. But I want to talk about location, location, location. And I'll start with you, Barrister Annie. What do you have to say on the idea on this whole idea of location?
I think it's very, very important. I think it's key because the whole point of, well, for me, the whole point of getting into the independent sector is to be part of it, part of, just get involved in every aspect of school life that you possibly can. So location does, I mean, obviously I understand some parents cannot physically be there for the after school sports games and the, cricket matches and the recitals. But if you're able to do that, then having the children or your child in a school where you can be involved, be part of the school life, it also encourages the child as well to do more. Just having that parent participation or having that parent encouragement in the activities that they have shown or expressed an interest in or have a talent in goes a very, very long way in also developing that child. So location is, and we have to think about the practical side of things. If you always have to take a 2 or 3 day holiday just to go see your child, then it might not be feasible in the long run, especially if you have other children and things of that nature. So it is important to think very carefully. If it's a day trip, a 2 hour trip, a 1 hour trip, a 3 hour train journey, if you're in the UK, that's fine, a day trip. That, but over that, then I've known parents who've relocated really from London to the Midlands to, closer to the north, just for reasons like this, because it is very, very important to be a part and parcel of school activities and school life as much as possible, because then you have that synergy or that relationship as well with the people who are actually acting, local parentis for your children. So it's important to have that engagement with the staff and, the rest of the school staff. It doesn't have to be just academic staff that you see at a parent teacher consultation and that's the end of that. You have to have a sort of relationship with the house mistresses, the housemasters, and you can only do that if you're close enough to be able to get there when needed and as needed, really.
So true, especially for families who maybe are UK based and have children in other
Yeah,
schools. There's a lot of commuting involved, and even for our international families as well. You just pop into the country briefly. It is important.
exactly.
Yes, and I have found that it's actually one of the filters in making a decision. I think it's one of the best filters ever. I just want to school within this location or within 2 hours or 3 hours drive from a
From
particular
Heathrow,
location.
from Gatwick, I want to
Yes,
land, get to the school in an hour, 2 hours. You don't want to have a 6 hour train journey to Scotland after you've landed in Heathrow. So it's very important to put those things into consideration.
absolutely. And one thing you said, Barrister Annie, that I also want to encourage our parents is be ready to move. Be ready to move if you have to, because some amazing schools are not 2 hours away from Heathrow. There are some amazing. I was in Cornwall earlier this week, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, what a beautiful part of the country this is!" It took me 8 hours one way to get. Yes, it was such a long journey, but an amazing community, an amazing school. And if that school is right for your child, then explore it. So whilst you filter your decision based on location, do not completely be closed off to some other schools because you just never know. It's worth exploring. Dr. Lloyd, do you want to say anything to that before we
Very
wrap?
briefly, I think one thing that came out that was positive from COVID is the ability to communicate like this. So parents never hesitate to demand that you speak to your house parent, to a subject teacher, to the principal on a Teams meeting. That's the first thing. Always expect. And actually, the teacher should be offering to do that, not you having to ask. That would be a key point to look out for if the school is truly outward looking. So Teams meetings. I'm introducing live streaming for our assemblies and sports matches so that parents who are living around the world can still participate in their girls' experience. The assembly on Thursday, I mentioned it earlier, it was a celebration of all the girls' achievements. It was fantastic. Even better was that, you know, the global community was able to join us for that live stream. And that's something we've just introduced. Do look at location from a practical point of view. Malvern is extremely fortunate to be 2 hours on the train from Heathrow. And so it does mean that my house mistresses on a rota will chaperone the girls to and from the airport direct to outside the school. The other, you know, look at safety. Please look at safety. Across the world, there is a rise in knife crime. There's a rise in access to drugs. I know I'm talking about Malvern, St. James here, but it was wonderful that about 6 weeks ago, Malvern was voted the safest town in the United Kingdom, which I'm very pleased to know because I don't want to be attacked. And I can literally walk out from my house up onto the Malvern Hills, Elgar's country, with the girls. The girls can go out, and I know that they're safe, and that is really important. I hope I'm not being sexist here. I think it's particularly important for the parents of girls to know that the environment where they are living is a safe area. So I would say location is important from a safety point of view. It's also important to make sure that they are living in a beautiful area, because a child who is growing up in inner city doesn't experience the same well-being that a child will with beautiful hills. And of course, then the duty of responsibility to the school is to make sure that they do go to the theatre and go to museums, etc., in the cities. But don't hesitate to demand Teams meetings and live stream events.
I think it is so cool, should I say, that you're introducing live streaming of your assemblies. How amazing is that? And I like the fact that you brought in the environment dimension of the location. So not just the accessibility or proximity to key places, but the environment itself, the nature of the location itself is very important, especially as they get older, because some of them will need to come out and just get some fresh air, go to, I don't know, Tesco Metro, or just get something. And you want to be sure they're doing that within a safe environment. So that's really important. So we're going to work our way up, and literally we're going to talk about pastoral care and diversity now, and then we'll be wrapping up with your top three advice, counsel on the whole, on the topic of finding the British boarding school that is right for your child. So now we're on to pastoral care and diversity. They're two very again, I mean, we can spend all day talking about pastoral care, talking about diversity. There's a lot to talk about, so I'm not expecting that we're going to exhaust it in full measure here, but just to bring out some key points as to what parents need to look out for in terms of the pastoral care setup of a school, because I think within a boarding education, that is so important. I went to an amazing secondary school, boarding school. Barrister Annie and I went to the same school, but I wouldn't exactly say pastoral care was up there, because the only time you saw your matron was to get out of that dormitory, go to school. I don't think we had a guidance and counseling unit. We used to call it GNC, and if there were any issues, I'm not sure we used it in its full measure. So whenever there were issues, we just had to toughen up and deal with it ourselves. Your parents may have like a teacher who becomes like your guardian, but that was about it. I wouldn't exactly say there was a strong pastoral care set up in place. But that's what's so good about British boarding education. And some schools outside of the United Kingdom are developing this whole setup, because the UK does boarding really, really well. So what should parents look out for in terms of the pastoral care setup? And if we can touch on diversity within a school as well, that would be amazing. So I'll start with you, Dr. Lloyd.
Pastoral care is such a huge thing, and there's so many different layers to unpack. I think ultimately, very simply, you need to look for love and kindness in the staff. You need to look for the size of classes so that teachers and form tutors can pick up on any issues. You need to look at accessibility from a parent's point of view to the child's housemaster or housemistress, but also to the head. If the head can't help a child or says that he or she is too busy to be able to deal with a serious matter, then sorry, they don't deserve to be in that position. That is why it is so important when you are living thousands of miles away, you have to be able to trust. So expect straight, honest answers. Never believe a school that says there is no bullying, for example. Bullying happens everywhere. It happens in every workplace. It happens in schools, at universities, etc. What matters is there in place a process by which the bullying is addressed openly and honestly, and it resolves tensions or misunderstandings? Look for a school that is outward looking and where it is, can I say the phrase colorblind? We do not define people by color. We do not define people by gender. We do not define people by economic status. We do not define people by religion or no faith. We define people by their hearts, their minds, their ability to communicate passionately and respectfully with everybody. So that's really what pastoral care is about. From a practical point of view, as parents, ask the school what systems do they have in place to ensure that pastoral care is at its best. For example, we use an electronic system called CPOMS. It's a fabulous way for a member of staff to record any concern, and that concern will be shared with the relevant teachers by different layers of the technology. That will lead straight to either me or one of my deputies, and we can then alert the parent or the guardian. And likewise, we can register any concerns that the parent guardian wants to share with us in CPOMS. I think pastoral care is about making yourself available. So when you do want to see the school about a concern, if you feel in any shape or form that obstacles are being presented, that's not a pastorally caring school. It's not good enough to put off for more than, say, 48 hours a meeting, ideally within 24 hours. It's the ability to respond honestly and positively and proactively to resolve a situation. So small classes do help. A boarding house where your house staff love being with the girls and the boys, that's really important. I've worked in schools. I once took on a school that was barely embracing mediocrity. And it was because I had too many teachers who saw it as a means to earn a salary rather than a vocation to nurture children and their passions and help them to be prepared for life. So you want to find a school where people are not ashamed to say, I love my pupils. I would do anything for any of my pupils. And that is pastoral care. It's about love. It's about kindness. It's about all the permutations thereof. And then it's about having a system in place to make sure that we communicate wherever a concern arises.
Oh, that is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you, Dr. Lloyd. Barrister Annie, Wanda Annie, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Just very quickly, I love what Dr. Lloyd said about, there being, if a school tells you there's no bullying, that's not correct. It is about, there is conflict. It's human nature to have conflict. I mean, our cultures, our values, either might differ, so it is natural to have conflict. So it's how that conflict is addressed. And whether you're thousands of miles away or whether you're, 2 streets down the road from the school, it's important to know that your voice or your child's voice has been heard and addressed. The outcome might still not be satisfactory because, again, the school would still have to balance, their decision and look at all the facts of the case. But it's just that having that, open door policy or open communication, that is very, very important, especially in a boarding school, because you're not there 24/7. So you don't want to be awake at night wondering if your child or your daughter or your son is crying themselves to sleep just because you're not close by. So that accessibility and trust in the process or the systems that's been set up to make sure the children are at least listened to, and any concerns addressed is very, very crucial. It's very, very important.
Absolutely. And it's important that your child feels heard and has an outlet, right, for that
Exactly.
to happen. And
Exactly.
one of the reasons I put pastoral care and diversity together, and I'm going to be making a bold statement here, is because pastoral care is actually more important than diversity. Many times my parents will say to me, "Oh, I want my children to have other children that look like them." I get that. I really do. However, what would you rather have them have more children that look like them, but the pastoral care setup of the school is not strong?
Mm.
My children are in a school where there are only two families, our family being one of the families that look like we do. However, it has been the best thing that happened not just to him, but to our entire family. We have some amazing friends who are parents in the school of a different race from us because the pastoral care setup at his school is phenomenal. It was literally a major reason we chose that school because he started boarding in year four. Year four, he was only 8. So pastoral care was big on the agenda, and we don't even feel it. We're literally color blind. So while I understand the importance of diversity, and I will recommend schools to you that will deliver on that. I just want our parents to know that beyond that is pastoral care. It doesn't matter if there's so many children that look like you, but your child is not being heard. So to what end was the diversity an issue? I've had a situation right now that we're dealing with where this was just interesting. The black children who came from African countries were being segregated from the black children who came from the United Kingdom. So what are we talking about? Right? So yes, there were lots of children that looked like each other, but even within that group, there was bullying,
Mm.
right? So these things happen, but I get it. But I'm just saying to you that please know that the pastoral care setup is actually very, very important. And let's not be closed-minded or be victims of our own concerns, right? Let's be more outward looking, as it were. Now that brings us to the final part of this amazing webinar. And I just want us to we've said so many things, and hopefully this has been so amazing for you and so insightful for you. Dr. Lloyd, if you were to identify your top 3 things that parents should look out for in trying to find the boarding school that is right for their children or their child, what would you say those top 3 things are?
Very succinctly, number one, the head's commitment to each and every pupil, and really test what does commitment mean. That would be the first thing, because the head has to be committed to ensuring that the whole ethos of the school is one that that is underpinned by happiness. As I said, a happy child will be productive in lessons, they will engage in activities, and they will be confident and competent in their interactions with people, regardless of background. So look for the head's commitment to each and every student, understand their values. The second thing is then broaden that and look at the quality of relationship that exists between the teachers and the pupils. Really test, if you're going on a visit to the school, ask the children, who do you turn to if you're unhappy? Who would you turn to if you wanted recognition? Which subjects are your favorite subjects? Then you know which subjects they don't like, and see, you can test by so many different ways. The quality of relationship between the teacher and the pupil is so important. And then, so thirdly, look at the feedback from visits to the school. Either speak to a trusted agent, other guardians, other parents, speak to the children, because children will tell you the truth. You want to find a school where their art, their drama, their dance, their sport, their science development, who they are as a person, all these things are celebrated. And they're celebrated for the child that they are, not for the name of the school, not for the uniform, not for the cost of the boarding education, not for the universities that they go to. Look at what each child's experience. So I would say head's commitment, quality of relationship between the teachers and the pupils, and feedback on the school. Those are the 3 key things I would suggest.
Amazing. I hope we're taking notes. Wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Lloyd. Barrister Wanda and me, what would be your top three?
From a parent's perspective, I would say, just piggybacking off Dr. Lloyd's final statement, look for a school that celebrates your child, your child's talent. It might
Yeah.
not be top tier, it might not, but the school that celebrates your child's talent will bring out the best in them, and your child will be the best version of themselves. As it can be overwhelming because there's a wide variety of choices and options. Look for a school that would be number one, the school that would seems almost tailor-made for your child, that would address your child's talents and interests alongside nurturing them academically and in other ways. That would be the first for me. And then the second for me would be expose that child to that environment as much as possible. Obviously, if you're in the UK, you can do that. If you're abroad, then you have brains and butter who go there and basically investigate the vibe of the school on your behalf. That is crucial. That is very essential. And then lastly, from a parent's perspective and having other children, you then have to factor in how that decision, whether financial or moving, relocating, or any decision in making that choice for that particular child, how it impacts on the family and the other children or the other child in that household. So it has to be, everybody has to be pulling in the same direction. You can't have two horses pulling a cart and going different ways. So the whole family has to be invested in that decision or that choice for it to work perfectly. So those would be my top three in making that decision for your child.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Barrister Wanda and for those top three things to look out for. My top three as a consultant, start early. Early. Give yourself time. The fact that you're on this call is such a great thing. Start as early as you possibly can. Number two will be know your child. Observe your child, know their temperaments really well, build up a profile if you can. I actually have seen parents who have CVs. The first time I saw it, I was blown away. It was phenomenal. This CV a lady had created for her daughter in year 6. She had logged all her awards. In fact, it inspired us to actually start logging the achievements and awards that our children who engage us for our services were achieving. So know your child. But beyond those awards, don't get me wrong. Some children may not win awards, and that's absolutely fine. But know what your child is good at, know what they enjoy, because that's what will inform this decision and carry them along in the decision. The final advice is a simple one. Speak to brains and butter. Literally. Like it doesn't get any better than that. Get in touch with brains and butter. Thank you, Dr. Lloyd. And on that note, my goodness, what an amazing time we have had. We plan to wrap this up in 5 minutes. Does anyone have any question? Would they like to make a contribution or ask a question? I think Dr. Lloyd has been on the Q&A and has been answering the questions. Does anyone have any other question or any contribution they want to make? I'm tempted to say, please speak now or forever. Hold your peace. No, don't worry. We'll be back for you to have more opportunities to speak. But if you have any question, please, now is the time before we bring this to a close. You can raise your hand. It will be so good to hear from someone. So good to hear from a parent or from someone. Would love to hear from you. Okay.
Hopefully, I was answering questions as they came in. I was able to type and listen. I can multitask to about 2 things at the same time, but not beyond that. But hopefully, I was able to answer some of those questions.
Amazing. And it seems like you've done such a great job at that because there's no one raising their hand. So I'm glad the questions have been answered. Aditola or Mayemi, could you please put our email address? Because there are quite a number of names here that I don't recognize. And I think for me, that's a blessing. It's a testament to growth as well. So if we can please drop our email address, you'll also get an email from us if you signed up, registered to attend this. Oh, we have a parent. Amazing. So, Fola Abe, I'm going to allow you to speak now. I would love to hear from you.
Hi, good afternoon. I thank you so much for this. I've actually asked the question in the chat, and Dr. Lloyd said 100%. Yes, it's regarding bursaries for international students, and because I know it's based on income and all that. So, Dr. Lloyd, the question is, when you're doing the assessment, would you assess them? So, a Nigerian parent, would you be assessing a naira income, or would you convert it to pounds first? Because based on how everything is going now, it's crazy. So what income, how would you do the assessment, if that makes sense? I don't know. Do I make sense what I'm trying to ask?
Fola, thank you very much. This was exactly the situation that my lovely Nigerian family faced and brought to me 2 weeks ago. They were absolutely distraught. They thought that they would have to withdraw their daughter. So, that was really difficult. So, obviously, parents shared with me their naira income. We were able to work out what that amounted to in UK, and we were able to step in and be very supportive, and they were incredibly appreciative. So we work very much with each individual parent. Be assured of that. I really feel for you. I have 3 children, and they all benefit from an independent education. I forewent holidays. I missed out on many little things that would make the quality of my life better. So I gave my children that opportunity. I've never regretted it, and I was fortunate enough to be able to have some support in doing that for my children. So I never forget what it's like for parents who want the best for their child and who have some economic challenges. So I've put my email in the chat there, Fola, so please don't hesitate to contact me, and we can have a separate Teams meeting at another point.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much. Thank you, Fola, for coming up to speak. It's so good to hear from you. Thank you. And we have Aisha as well.
Hi, good evening. Very insightful conversation. My question is just is to ask, would they also consider children who haven't quite gotten into secondary yet, that is year 7? Because I have 2 children, but I'm looking at starting a bit earlier than year 7 for one of them.
Absolutely. It will depend on which school you are looking at, but in the UK, boarding generally starts aged 7. Some schools will be starting boarding from aged 11, and others will be starting at age 13. So again, Alo, or I can advise you on a range of schools that would fit with the age that you are looking at, Aisha.
Okay, yes.
On Thursday at our lovely celebratory assembly, it was rather special to announce to the school our new head girl, and Rakaya, and she is from Lagos, and she is the most wonderful example of a strong, independent, intelligent, respectful Nigerian woman. And she has been boarding at Malvern St. James since the age of 8. So there will be boys' schools and girls' schools and co-education schools that can meet the age requirements that you were looking at.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lloyd. My daughter is currently 8, so I'm just looking at next year.
Yes. So there are most girls' boarding schools and co-educational schools start boarding generally around the age of 11, but there will be some, particularly the single sex, can manage better with boarding from the age of 7 or 8.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So you've answered the question I was going to ask, which is your daughter is currently 8 years old. I don't know what month, what side of August she's on. So what year is she in now? Aisha?
She's in an American school now, because we live abroad, but that's she's in grade 5 now.
Yeah,
Okay,
Grade
so
4,
that's
grade 4, which is year 5.
Yep.
that's correct.
year 4. Okay. Okay. We can have the conversation. We can get in touch with you and have the conversations afterwards. But you do have options. There are quite a number of options. At the age of 8, she can board. If you're looking at next year, by the time she's 9, um, she'll be very ready to start boarding. So it's definitely a conversation that we would love to have with you. But thank you so much. Thank you for participating in the Would You questions and for asking a question as well. It's great to hear from you. It is 12:33 my time. I want to say a big thank you. Can we all please just join me in appreciating Dr. Gareth Lloyd, Barrister Wando Annie for their time, their heart, they pour their hearts and soul, giving us the best of themselves in answering this question, in discussing the key issues we've raised today. Thank you both so much. It has been so amazing having you both on the call today as we've celebrated, thank you, our 8th anniversary at Brains and Butter. And I want to thank my amazing team who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Adetola, Okbayemi, Blessing, Being Pay. There's even a lady who will be joining us soon. I saw her on the call as well. So it's been so amazing having, and parents, our parents, this is because of you. This is because of you. We want your daughter, your son to thrive, and thrive they will. I always say anyone that engages with Brains and Butter, attends a webinar of some sort, or engages us on our services, your child must thrive. It's like a covenant promise we have with the Lord and with God, with Almighty. So thank you for being on this call. You definitely place a premium on your child's education. It has been an amazing time. Thank you. Happy 8th anniversary to us at Brains and Butter. God bless you and do enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thank you very much and see you later. Bye.
Bye. God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done, Flo. And lovely to meet you, albeit online, Nwando.
Electronically. Nice to meet you too, Dr. Lloyd. We've just, I've had, when I heard you talking about the Cameroonian girl and her voice, I'm like, well, another senior school we then have to go to,
Oh,
because we
she's fantastic. She's such a beautiful person, Beulah, as we're no longer. And her father died. I only found this out from mother. I went down to London to have coffee with mother because she was very concerned about Beulah's happiness from
Right.
an incident that happened last year. I joined the school in January, and the school did not know that Elizabeth, Beulah's mother, had lost her husband in a terrible motorcycle accident when Beulah was only 18 months old. So I suppose I've taken Beulah under my wings a bit because music is my subject, and we are just having the most amazing time. But you know what? It's worth every moment, and she really is talented. So
And you know what? Just the actions speak 1,000 times louder than words. The fact that you've taken the time to go to London. I mean, with the world as it is, it could have been a Teams call, but because of that, you have taken the time out of your very busy schedule, I'm sure, to go to, so that
thank
that
you.
the girl herself would then be willing to give her all back to
Yeah,
the school, because it's life, isn't it? You give as much as you get. So
absolutely.
it's amazing to hear that.
Well,
Wow.
it was rather lovely. 2 days later, Beulah came back after being there for a weekend with a big bag of homemade jam. So it was all about giving and receiving.
Oh, that is fantastic to hear that you did that. I'm in awe of how you were able to fit that in, actually,
That's so lovely.
alongside every other thing that you obviously have to do on a daily basis.
Do you know what? I mentioned Rakayu, our new head girl, and when I presented her to the school, I brought her up onto the stage, and I stood to the side, and I, held my arm out to, and the school just erupted, and I could barely speak afterwards because I was choked. she is going to go on to do great things. And she gave the best interview I've ever heard. Succinct, deep, insightful, humility. It was amazing. And and the young girl that I've helped, who 2 weeks ago, her mother contacted me, very distressed, because they had worked out where they stood financially, and I did not know just how poorly the
Situation
Niger was
is.
doing at the time. And so it was really good to be able to help that family also. So it's, some schools, some people find it very difficult to talk about bursaries, scholarships, money, but we shouldn't be ashamed to have to
These
discuss it. So
conversations.
I think it was great, Alo, that you included that as part of the Q&A. I think it was really important, that honesty.
Yes, yes. And everything we've been saying, it really is about people. It's about relationships at the end of the. But one of the things I actually wanted to say at the start, and I forgot to mention, and it's interesting. We have some people still on the call listening to our gist. I was watching the Duchess of Cambridge's video yesterday, and I all sorts of emotions, and at the end of the day, they're people. Yes, the
Absolutely.
royal family, they are people, and having to deal with how does she break this news to her
Children.
children?
As
Which
the mother of young children, what
Mhm.
she has gone through is inexcusable. I am disgusted with the media
Yeah.
across the world. I think she's amazing. I had the pleasure of meeting her last September.
How did
oh,
you?
Yes, I was singing at St. David's Cathedral,
Wow.
and she and William came to St. David's Cathedral to mark the first anniversary of Queen Elizabeth's death,
Okay.
and I met them afterwards, so that was rather lovely. And
Oh.
she's a beautiful person inside and out, and it was appalling what she was
Mm.
subjected to as a person. And to have to go on a global stage to explain her position as a
honestly,
mother of young children when she's going through
mm,
chemotherapy,
Mm.
it was so inexcusably invasive.
so absolutely, honestly, and to think that she had a surgery in January, so you can imagine the journey, the work up to
To
that,
get.
Totally alone.
and all that scrutiny. So, and it's about people. It
Mm.
really is about people, and it just brings us back to the conversation about the school environment and the people. Honestly, Dr. Lloyd, this is not to flatter or anything. I truly mean this. You're probably one of the most relatable headmasters I've ever met, and it's not because of
The
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 school.
vibe is different, isn't it?
And I think as the head of a different school. So this is not because of
It's not
the
because of
school.
MSJ, it's him as a, and you can
Yes,
imagine the impact that you make. For example, I'll use my son as an example. His year three teacher
yes.
made such a, JJ couldn't read when he got into year three, but at the end of year three, he was reading Tom Gates, he was reading Tom Fletcher, he was reading David Williams. The impact that lady made in his life and in our lives as parents is, for the rest of my life, I will never forget her. So it's that
Wow.
sort of, and I'm sure, Dr. Lloyd, that there's some girls that have been in your care, some, so that, if you wake them up in 50 years time, who was that teacher, who was that head, I'm sure it might be you. So I've
So
just literally met you for 1 hour today, and the vibe, I wish I could have brought Esperanza on this call, because then she'd be like, you know what, it's MSJ. Once I'm done in year 9, take me to MSJ, because it's the people, it's the,
it is
be-
absolutely.
you could pay a whole lot of money. I've heard stories of girls who've gone to Downhouse or Marlborough and they've been miserable,
Mm,
absolutely miserable, the top
mm,
tier, the Wickham. But it's like I said in the call, you'd want a human being to come back to you after you've
Absolutely.
yes.
invested all that
Absolutely.
money. You don't want
This
to
is
have to
how I
invest
connect
more
with the
money in
girls.
therapy.
This is how I connect with the girls. Ready? I write music for them.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh.
So I wrote this when my daughter. This is what I do with Beulah and the GCC and A-level music students. I'm in assembly when they're a bit tired. I ask them what would they like.
This is so calming.
Very.
But I think music speaks to so many people.
Yes,
It does. Absolutely.
It's a universal language.
yes.
So I wasn't
Oh
expecting
my
to do that.
days.
And I think learning is most memorable and it remains with us when it engages with us and when it's fun and it's interactive and
And impromptu. And
and impromptu. Exactly. There's nothing like a bit of improvisation.
wow.
You've won our
Wow.
hearts, Dr. Lloyd.
Wow.
Honestly.
Every time I meet you, Alo, you win my heart because you smile from ear to ear
Oh,
and you speak from the heart. We speak the same language. Music is
Yes.
universal. A
Yes.
smile is universal. A thank you is universal. And those things, I've introduced etiquette to the school, not in an old-fashioned way, but showing good manners, understanding how to eat properly at the table, how to communicate appropriately with different people. And the girls are loving it. They're coming up with ideas all the time.
mhm.
They teach me.
Wow. I think the deep calls to the deep when you find
Mm,
your kind and your
mhm.
tribe and people that are
Your
really,
your tribe, and it transcends race and
So
color
true.
and religion.
this is
It's
it.
the heart, you're connected by heart.
Yes. Yes. People,
Wow.
people, people. Thank you so much, Dr. Lloyd.
Absolute pleasure. Great to see you.
Great to see. Can I ask before you leave, where were you off to on holiday?
Cuba.
Oh, oh
I'm really
wow.
excited. Yeah, I'm
Wow.
really, really excited. I've
Oh,
never
wow.
been. I'm going to a hotel that fronts a beach, and the beach has the reputation of being the second most dangerous for shark attacks. And I love sharks.
Oh,
So
wow.
I've been told I'm not to go further than my feet, but I'm so excited to go to Cuba.
Oh,
Wow.
wow. That sounds like an adrenaline sort of complete.
Field holiday.
It
Mhm.
will be.
Exactly.
It will
Oh,
be.
wow.
Make sure you
Wow.
come back to us though, Dr. Lloyd.
That's what my
In
deputy
one
said.
piece. In one piece.
Absolutely. Oh, well, look, have a very happy Easter, all of you. And thank
Thank
you
you
Thank
ever
so
so
much.
much,
you
Alo, for
too.
inviting me to join you. Barrister Nando, lovely to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you.
I know
You
a
will
big
be
fan
hearing from us, I'm sure.
of fantastic. God
Thank
bless.
you
Thank
so
Happy
much.
you.
Easter to
Take
you all.
care.
Thank you. Happy
All right.
Easter. Bye, everyone. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.